I hope you're having a good time developing this app, and this is my design.txt file, so my thought of how this app should be structured. So that's the title, cinema ticket booking. The description, this will be an app where a user can book a cinema seat if the seat is free and if the user has a balance in their card, bank card. We're talking about enough balance given the price of the ticket, and the app generates a PDF ticket if the purchase is successful. That's what this app should do more or less, and then we have the objects. So a user object, a seat object, and so what other nouns do we have? Balance, but balance is more an attribute of card. So I thought of having a card object type as well, and lastly a ticket object type. The user type, the user class, is going to have a name, so in this case we do have a user class. In other apps that we developed throughout the course, we didn't have a user class because we didn't have to differentiate between different users. But in this app it is important to differentiate between users, so a user will have a name and that name is going to be printed out in the PDF ticket. And so there will be different users with different names, therefore it makes sense to have a user class. So when we instantiate a user, what do we need to have as a minimum? Well, the user needs to have a name. Therefore, I think name would be an argument, a parameter of the init method. And then a user, what can a user do in this app? Well, they can buy a ticket. Therefore, I thought of having a buy method with a seat and a card parameter. So this method will have these two parameters. Now a seat is going to be this seat object type. So this method gets as argument, when it is called, it gets as argument a seat object instance. So that's an object instance of that and an object instance of card. Because a user needs to have chosen a seat and needs to have a card. So basically in the code later on, when you do like user equal to user John, and you also instantiate a seat, let's say A1, that seat, and you instantiate a card equal to card with all the arguments needed for a card, such as the type, Visa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so the card number and the CVC and so on. And then you will call the user by method where you pass the seat and the card as arguments. So that one and that's the idea. Right, and then we have this seat object type, which is going to have a database parameter, which could be either an instance variable or a class variable. It could make more sense to be a class variable, since the database will not change between different instances of seat. But either way it would work. Show the path to the database, to the cinema.db database, and then we have the seat ID. So when we instantiate the seat, we're going to have the seat ID and the price of the seat, which actually it's not going to be passed here as argument because we don't know the price. The price is in the database. That could be something like, you have the class seat, and then we would have like def init, and then inside init we could have something like open the connection to the database. So build the connection and then make a query, cursor.execute, and then you get the data, so you get the price from the database. Price would be something like cursor.fetch all. So that would be the price, actually self.price. You get the price from init. That's one way to do it. Another way is to not do that extraction of price from init, but have another method, such as get price, and then in that method you do the same thing. So you open a connection to the database, and then you fetch all from the cursor, and so you get a price, and this would return the price. So the price would be equal to cursor.fetch all, and so on, and you return the price. So either way it would be fine. I hope that makes it clear. And then I thought of having an availability parameter for seed, which again, it's not an argument, so the seed will not be expecting to get that as an argument, but this would also be extracted from the database. So again, this could also be a method like get availability, instead of calculating availability in it again as we did for price. So these two are special. So these two can be calculated either through a method or inside init. Alternatively, we can exclude that and have a method such as is available or is free. So is available, or just leave it as is free. Again, this method would return either true or false given that particular seed ID. And then occupy. So occupy would be a method which would get information from this method. So if is free, that means if this is free method returns true, then we change the value in the taken field of the database table from 0 to 1. So we occupy that seed. That's the idea about the seed class. Then we have card. Again, database. This would be the banking.db database with the card table inside. So this would be the path to the database. The type of the card, either Visa or MasterCard, which in my app, in the app that I developed, doesn't have any role actually. So I'm not using that card information for anything, but it's just good to have it there. The number though of the card and the CVC and the holder are important. So the user should pass them in here, and then we check the database table, so the card table. We check the card table if these data are in the table. And we do that check in the validate method. So the validate method also gets a price as argument, so the price of the seed. And actually the user buy method is going to call this method. So in the definition of buy, we are going to call this validate method and pass the price of the seed in there. In buy, we do have access to seed, to the instance of the seed, and seeds is going to have this price argument attribute. Therefore, we can access the price from the buy method. And the validate method will also subtract the price from the user balance in the card table of the database. That's the idea more or less. Finally, we have ticket ID. ID is going to be generated by Python randomly as a random string, so the user is not expected to pass an ID of the ticket. We are going to generate it. So this could be done in the init method again. So you could have something like ID equal to a random.string or whatever method you can use to generate random strings in Python. You can find that out easily by Googling. So how to generate strings, random strings in Python. The ticket is going to have a user instance, and then from that instance inside ticket, we can extract the name of the user and maybe other information. Well, in this case, only the name, because the user doesn't have much to say, it doesn't have much information besides the name. And then the price, so we want to print out the price in the ticket. Because remember that the ticket looked like this. So it has the name of the user, the ticket ID, the random string, the price, and the seed number. So the price, we have the price here, and the seed, so we can extract the seed number from the seed instance. And then we have this method to PDF, which will save the ticket into a PDF file, into this path, which is just a string. So that's my design anyway. Feel free to modify it as you wish, so be flexible. Don't worry about following my design. And yeah, I'll talk to you in the next videos. Thanks for this and see you.